so that God can work and fulfill His purpose in our life and His vision, and that needs time. So what happened, actually the vision that God had for Abraham also went a bit not the way that God wanted, right? Because we know all the problems that came out of that child that was not Sarah's child, or not. We know all the problems that happened. So Abraham, he kept believing God, and God blessed him with Isaac. We know. And God gave the promise, but it was not completely the way that God had wanted it to do. So Abraham was weak for the earthly desires of his wife. Isn't that right? Abraham was weak for the desires of his wife, but instead he should have looked at the stars each night. Instead, he should have looked at the sand by the sea. When God is speaking forth His word to you, and He promised something to you, and the vision that He gave to you, keep by that promise. Stay with that vision, and do not go astray, and maybe earthly desires come up, and the vision that God has for you will not be fulfilled. He went in his own strength, and he looked at his body and thought, it will be over. It will never come to pass. And sometimes that's what we think too. When we wait so long, we think it will never happen. God also had a vision for Moses. Remember? He had a vision for Moses to bring him to the promised land. We know that Moses did not enter in. We know. But Moses passed the vision to Joshua. Yeah. To Joshua. And Joshua held on to that vision even after 40 years. And you know what is so sad of the story with Joshua? That when Joshua and Caleb believed God, that He had that vision for them, for the people of God, that they had to make a detour for 40 years, which was not their fault. Do you know that when we have responsibility, wherever, in church, at home, or where it is, and God has maybe a promise for you, and when we make a detour, then we bring others in that detour with us who might be on another level with God if we would not go astray. It's so important to keep your eyes fixed on Jesus. It's so important to hold on to the promises of God. It's so important that you stick with the vision that God has given to you. When we go astray and make a detour, maybe for years, maybe your children, maybe not the whole church, because maybe you're not a pastor or don't have that responsibility, but maybe your children or someone else has to go with the detour with you. We don't have that time anymore in our lives to make a detour. God says, now is the appointed time to serve me. Yes. And Moses, he was gone. And Joshua was there. And Joshua served the Lord. And it says in Joshua 14, let me see. I have to read it because it's so powerful. It says in Joshua 4:14 that Caleb with him, they were together. Now then, just as the Lord promised, He has kept me alive for 45 years since the time He said this to Moses, while Israel moved about in the desert. So here I am today, 85 years old. I am still as strong today as the day Moses sent me out. I'm just as vigorous to go out the battle now as I was then. And then it says in verse, at the end of 12, that the Lord helping me, I will drive them out just as he said. And it says in verse 14, because Caleb followed the Lord, the God of Israel, wholeheartedly. You know, he says, I am 85 years old. He says, I'm just as strong as I was 40 years ago. Now, I was thinking about this. And he doesn't mean I am strong in my body like 40 years ago. I don't believe that he meant that. He meant, now I have the same vision to conquer the land just like 40 years ago when I was with Moses. And you know, that was possible because he followed the Lord wholeheartedly. It says there. Maybe the vision has faded away for you. Maybe you are tired of waiting. You know, Abraham made that mistake, although he is the father of many nations, but he made this mistake to listen to earthly desires. And the reason was they could not wait anymore. God has a vision for his people. The main vision that he has in the beginning was to be one with his creations, man and woman. And when Satan destroyed that, through all the ages, that was his same vision that God has for mankind. Therefore he sent Jesus. So they could be reunited again, and not only be together in fellowship, but so that God can live in us. Amen. That's the vision of God. To live in you, to live in me. And so that no one will perish. Oh, it's God's tragic cry that no one will perish. No one. So through all the years, all the thousands of years, all the hundreds of years, God kept his promise. God kept his vision for you, for me. And he said, I'm coming. Yes. And therefore he sent Jesus. And when Jesus came and died, he says, now my vision is back. God has a vision. And the vision is here in this church. Amen. And I am here to remind you of that vision. And to tell you to keep the vision alive. Amen. And there are people who cannot keep their vision.